So today we have the pleasure of having our architect, our interior designer, and our real estate professional, as well as me, the builder, discussing the ins and outs of ALTA, our Aussie Modern, and how it came to fruition as we're about to go to market next week. With that said, let's get to it. So I appreciate you guys all coming and sitting down with us today to talk about this amazing project we put together that we've been labeling ALTA, our Aussie Modern. And I really just wanted to get everyone in a room, be able to talk about this amazing project and all the pieces that kind of come together to make this come to fruition. You know, so real quickly, introduce who you are, a little bit about your company, and, you know, what you enjoyed most about working in a collaborative effort to be able to make these homes come to fruition.
I'm Tyler Kinsey. I'm an architect with Design Tank, and we specialize in high-end residential architecture.
And I'm Emily Yates with Urban Revival Interiors, and I've worked with Nate with Rebuild the Block for many years now, so it's fun to keep it going.
My name is Paul Nicoletti. I'm with Retzi. I've been doing real estate for just over 8 years, and I've had the very lucky and very fortunate to represent Rebuild the Block on all their acquisitions and sales for the last 4 to 5 years.
So, Paul, I know we were working on how to be able to describe this home as we're coming to market, and you had mentioned it's the epitome of luxury design with some Australian focus. And so I'd like to hear how you guys felt like this embodies that more modern architecture that we often see in some of the other countries that are building some really amazing product.
For us, it's less embodying other design styles, and it's more about, on this project, was more about taking the traditional form that you see in residential architecture, the gable, and contemporizing it. So that was really through the use of the gabled form, but in a bent, we kind of have an asymmetrical gable, and it's bent, and expressing that as part of one of the main architectural features of the house.
And out of curiosity, I know that we labeled it, ALTA. So you want to describe a little bit about, the reason for that, Latin nomenclature?
Yeah, so it is Latin, and it means elevated or lofted. And so that really is derived from the program of the house and the massing. So we utilized as much as we could of the space, the available space on the ground plane for all of the program for the project. And then what was left over, which is primarily all the secondary bedrooms and living space, secondary living space got lofted up above the main space. And then we took that program and extruded it. And that's really what created the covered patios and porches that create the shaded areas for us to kind of utilize.
So on that note, I know that one of the big deliverables that we wanted as, the builders and developers that Rebuild the Block was to create a more architecturally significant palette for two-story design within the Arcadia light market, which is what we're in. And then the other thing is that we felt like there were a lot of neighborhoods that two stories were kind of dominating the space. Can you explain a little bit about how we, designed this to be more neighborhood friendly with the asymmetrical architecture that, you had selected, you and your team had selected?
Yeah, so, it is tricky to design a new home in an existing neighborhood. There's this particular neighborhood, there's a lot of houses that are original, single levels, and then there's some that are 2 stories and quite large. So we were kind of blending between the two. And one of the things that we wanted to do with the second level on this home, knowing that it wouldn't fit on the first level, is we centered it into the middle of the lot. And so that was one of the things. So we weren't pushed to one side. We weren't like overbearing or like down on top of the neighbors on either side. Another thing that we did is through the use of color. So the second story volume is painted a darker color and not white. So it fades away more than if it was a white box, it'd be more apparent. So we try to do it in a couple different ways.
One of the things that I really enjoyed in working with your team was, determining window placement. Obviously we want to capture some of the amazing views that we have here and also be cognizant to our neighbors and to those that would be residing upstairs. So I think that there's a lot of privacy that's gained by bringing that volume inset from the lower level. Limits those viewpoints from our neighbors looking into the house, but also from those that are residing in the house, looking out across the neighborhood. So that was something that I really focused on because I just feel like there's not as much architecturally significant 2 stories that are going on within these neighborhoods. But with the smaller lots, it's just going to become more and more common that developers are going to go two-story. We hope that by bringing this project to life, that people can start to realize that there's other ways to be able to design in a way that's more compatible with the neighborhood.
I think one of the things that we also try to do with all of our homes is we don't just focus on the front facade, but we really try to carry that architectural language through the entire design. So the sides of the home and also the rear. So when you get to a two-story home in a neighborhood, obviously the homes behind it are going to be looking at it. So we don't want to leave it completely untouched and just, blank as what you see with most developer-driven homes.
Emily, from an interior design perspective, I know that you're focused mostly on the interior, but how exciting was it to work on something that is a little bit different, and to be able to work with Tyler and the team at Rebuild the Block to be able to make this more modern masterpiece come together?
I mean, it's like the best of all worlds, being able to, team up and work all together, because it's not just all my thought processes, right? I get to, add on to his and to yours and collaborate together. And I think as an interior designer, a lot of times we're handed like, an ugly structure and we need to beautify it. And here, my job is really to like make the structure where all the money's being spent shine. It's not, I don't want to distract from anything around. So I got to practice a lot of restraint, but also beautify the spaces and make sure that nothing is distracting from the architecture. So just like trying to work hand in hand and, make sure you're shining and the interiors are shining and functional at the same time, and working with Nate to make sure that the build all makes sense. Like, I don't know, it's just really fun to not be all on my own for this.
And I think you really elevated the architecture. So it's really great when the interiors elevates the architecture and the architecture helps elevate the interiors at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really appreciate as a builder is that there's continuity, or there's a connection from the exterior design and the interior design. And can you speak on maybe some of the exterior influences that helped to create some inspiration for how you wanted to bring some of those similar elements from the outside in?
Yeah, I know we mentioned it when we did a walkthrough of the interiors, but there are some vertical shade structures on the front of the home that we drew inspiration from to use on the staircase railing. And you as the builder executed that perfectly. It's a really unique detail that I haven't really seen before, and so I loved being able to do that. Also, in the kitchens and the bathrooms, just running a lot of horizontal lines, but then making it interesting using natural materials. Like in the kitchen where we waterfalled one edge, but not both, right? Like being asymmetrical.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think that we obviously, as a builder and developer, we have to obviously sometimes modify some things, but some of the other elements that I felt like were, compatible with one another would be the, more troweled concrete finish that we were able to do on the exterior facade of the garage. And then to bring in the element with the fireplace concrete surround as well as the terrazzo sink, giving a more minimalistic palette, but also at the same token, like one of the things that's great about terrazzo is the imperfection of it. And so having a more asymmetrical structure, although it's clean lined and very unique, it helps to bring some of those elements inside as well when we're talking about some of those minimalistic details that, are, for lack of a better term, handmade or hand produced, which gives it a feel of elegance or luxury from a standpoint that is completely custom from some local vendors that we have here.
One of the things that I really like about Rebuild the Block is that you guys will take some of those non-traditional elements that, I design and also Emily design, and you guys implement them and execute them,
Absolutely.
And a lot of developers and a lot of builders don't end up executing some of these detailed items that we like to see in the home that really make it stand out. And I think that's really a testament to how well you guys build and what the quality of the product is that you build as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd like to build on a little bit, obviously you worked with a lot of different, people that worked in different industries. I think you were working commercial before you got into residential, but how important is it to you that you work with people that are trying to keep the design intent in mind when building the home?
Very important. I mean, I think you've probably experienced this, Emily, but like a lot of times, money is a factor, right? And a lot of times the design gets watered down and things get taken out of it, and it becomes a situation where the overall design and intent of the home just isn't there anymore. What I really like is that you guys actually execute on what we're trying to do and understand it. And then if there is potentially something that we need to modify or value engineer to make it actually implemented, you can come to us, and you have, and we work through that together. So it is really important. It's really disheartening when a project doesn't end up how it was originally designed. And that's something that I don't have to worry about with you guys.
And we all know that cost is a huge consideration. It's something we talk with when we build custom homes for clients as well. And I know that it's sometimes tough to be able to determine where those cost considerations are made. But one of the things that make this house very unique is the expansive use of glass that normally wouldn't be found in, let's say, this specific neighborhood. And to me, keeping that design intent was pretty much the whole curb appeal and the overall architectural significance of the home. And so I'd like to touch base on that from all three perspectives. We'll start with Paul. How do you feel like the expansive use of glass will be viewed from an end user perspective when you're talking to people that are looking to buy essentially a custom home to be able to reside in?
So they all love it. I mean, from the exterior, it's just striking. It's just phenomenal. On the interior, you can walk through this house in the middle of the day and you have just rooms filled with light, but no direct light. It's truly spectacular. The only comment that I've received is, wow, I'm going to need a lot of window coverings, which, that's the only, it's not even a negative comment, maybe more just an observation from a potential end user or a fan. But I can't even think of the words. It's just spectacular when you walk in this house and there's just the angles from upstairs. I mean, when you come walking out of one of the fourth auxiliary bedroom, when you come walking out, you almost have 360 views of the entire valley. I mean, you can see Camelback out of this window. You can see the Preserve out of this window, Papago out of this window, and then downtown Phoenix out of another. I mean, the views are phenomenal. The light is it's mesmerizing, and it's just striking from all angles.
And that was one of the main elements that we wanted to feature. How does that help with some of the interior design aspects in the home? I mean, do you take into account some of the lighting that is used within each individual space?
Well, it's really wonderful when you can just take the exterior elements and the views and bring them inside. So we stayed very neutral and wanted to make sure that nothing we did was competing with the views outside, because we have these windows. Like, they get to do all the talking. And we just need to make sure that we create a very functional space that's luxurious and very user-friendly and is not competing with the views outside.
One of the things that I found that we always try to focus on is, regardless of whether it's the amount of glass that's in this home or some of the other homes that we've built that are maybe more along like farmhouse or maybe more of a traditional style that maybe doesn't have, some of the clear story transom type glass, is how important it is to have natural light within the spaces. And, I think as a designer, it allows you to be able to utilize accent light a little bit more as truly accent light versus actually trying to bring light into that space, because there's not enough light, there's not enough windows.
We were able to use some lights in different ways here in this house than we typically do, like in the kitchen, having an asymmetrical light. Even in the powder bath, we had two sconce lights where usually they'd be featured on each side of a mirror, and both of them are on one side. So we were able to do some fun things considering all the natural light in this home. Absolutely.
And I think, just to finalize that comment is, I know that you were able to bring some of the asymmetrical items in, but one of the things we really want to focus on is that accent lights truly are accent lights. They're not needed for light, and I will jump to Tyler because there's some nuances and challenges that come with trying to bring more glass into the space. Can you run through some of the items that are, cost prohibitive when it comes to, designing architecturally from a structural perspective for the expansive use of glass?
Yeah, so there's a lot. Glass obviously isn't structural or load bearing. So one of the things that we have to use is there's a lot more structure and beam. So one of the things that we have to really do is provide more structure in the home to be able to span the width to get some of these large pieces of glass. So like the multi-slide doors, and the cantilevered overhangs, it really does require a lot more of attention to detail in how the structure works.
So from a building perspective, just adding on some of the structural components, I mean, ultimately it is different for our framers when, you don't have like top plates for all your windows that are, like let's say you're able to have a beam. So you have to be able to pocket all the beams into the truss details, which makes the trusses more complex. And, you have to really pay attention to the details that are coming through that allow for the door and window packages to really come together. Some of the other items were, some of the cantilever beam details. I know that we wanted some minimalistic lines. So being able to have enough room on the interior truss package where we have 24 or 30-inch trusses, but then as we expand out to, let's say the outer edges of the home, reducing that down to, cantilevered pocket beams that allow us to go to a 12-inch or a 15-inch reveal on the exterior pallet, which helps to keep it much more minimalistic and less bulky, and also allows us to go like tip to tip with glass within that, let's say, asymmetrical transom glass that is within that space.
So I think what's difficult to achieve a lot of times is the floor to ceiling glass, And so when it hits the ceiling, it's a very contemporary look, and it makes the, you can see more sky, you can see the tops of trees, it makes the room feel a lot more expansive, but it is a lot more difficult to achieve. And it's more costly at the same time. So one of the things, you mentioned on earlier was, when we get to the exterior of the home, and we've dropped our trusses from in half from a 24-inch truss to a 12-inch truss on the exterior. And it's really an effort to thin up the exterior massing of the home, make it more contemporary, so it doesn't feel so heavy and oppressive.
So I know that I've been working with Paul for about 4 years now, and we work in some of the most competitive luxury markets here in Phoenix, whether that be Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, or the Arcadia market, which kind of hugs both Scottsdale and Phoenix. So how would you say that this property specifically stands out in such a competitive market?
This property, and I think along with a lot of the other properties that you've done in the past, and I think the ones that you and Emily have collaborated on, and now that we have Tyler at you have Tyler's design tank, I think you've built this following. You've built a following of people that know and trust your construction. And you have people that are actually fanboys and fangirls that actually come to every open house, whether or not they've bought one from the past, looking to buy one, or are in the market to build one. You've also created this synonymous relationship with just quality and design forward building. Every house is a one of one. Everything that we do from here out's a one of one. That's how this house stands apart. People, when we introduce a house to the market, it gets talked about. It's not just another, what would we call it? Like another just Toll Brothers home. And I'm not talking bad about Toll Brothers, but what's that? What are they called? Track home.
Track home.
It's not just another track home build with a floor plan copy and pasted to another lot. You built a reputation of quality, actually being there for your clients, listening to the clients, listening to the buyers. And, a lot of our homes that are being built now aren't for everybody. We want a specific buyer. We're not looking for a buyer that's just looking for a house. We're looking for a buyer who wants this house.
So I know we've talked about it in some different conversations that we had in how to market our homes as custom homes. Obviously, we're building them on speculation that we're going to sell them, but they're not your traditional spec development where we're just speccing the same things over and over again, same floor plans. How does that benefit the buyers of our home?
I think it benefits the buyers of our home because when we go into a market, yes, and I know Nathan kind of hates this motto that I have that we don't follow comps, we build comps. For a person that comes into a neighborhood like this or any other neighborhood that we're building, is you get to be the person that sets the tone for the comps. So yes, is the house quality construction that you will pay for? Yes. Does it have all the items that you didn't know you needed but need? Yes. The idea is when you buy our home, you're buying into this market that we're now, everybody else is going to be chasing. We've now set the tone. So every other builder that builds a decent or quality product will now be chasing up in the market, making this home more valuable in the future.
So I love the concept that we've talked about, which is, we really are trying to make comps because we're trying to build a better product overall, right? And I think that we've talked about it a lot. What happens when a custom home that someone built, let's say 5 years ago, goes on the market for the first time?
So we've been actually noticing a lot of that lately with a lot of our tours, with our Retzi branded tours, bus tours, Arcadia tours and the PV tours. Arizona in the past, Phoenix generally in the past hasn't had a huge draw for quality, high priced or high value customs. And a lot of the homes that were on a spec level, we just didn't have that need for $10 million houses, $5 million houses at volume. So a lot of the houses that we were seeing being built to the best quality were customs. And all of a sudden, a lot of those are hitting the market, and it's really easy to see why those homes are now fetching the prices that they're getting. You're getting a lot of these really quality builds that were just done for the owner with all of the details that you're seeing in these homes now being put on the market. And that's what's driving the market, I think, to the direction of where we're going now, why you're seeing some spec builds for selling at higher price per square foot is because a lot of these custom builds are now getting those higher price. It's kind of just driving the market up. What the great part about this spec custom is you're getting all of that quality, but you're not having to sit through all of the remodel or the build process with the frustrations, the angers, the change orders, the decisions on a year to 2 year basis. You get to come in and rest assured that you have all of that on this spec build.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is that we've talked a lot, each one of our homes are uniquely custom, and that's really the market we're chasing, is building a better product that allows people to live their best life but not have to go through the hassles and the headaches of timelines, budget increases. I mean, when someone buys our home, obviously they're buying it on the market, so there's not going to be those hidden costs that sometimes are associated with customs.
Well, also, we're not, like I said in a little bit ago, we're not looking for just any buyer. We're not looking for just someone out who needs a home. We're looking for somebody that's looking for something that's, architecturally significant, design forward, quality built, and will be in the home for longer than 2 to 3 years. Ideally, we want somebody to buy this home and love it and want to be here, not just buy a house because it's a house that has 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a backyard. We want somebody that wants all of the things that this group has brought to the table.
Would you say it's more of a collaborative effort? Like, do you have clients that you work with that are much more focused on functionality than others?
Yes and no. I think, everyone needs the home to function in an efficient way. But I think some people are more driven into the nuances of the plan and how people are going to live in the home day in and day out. And I think you're one of those people. We went back and forth on this plan quite a bit, and I think that's to the betterment of the project as a whole. Mm-hmm. So I think the more time we have to sit and go through the project and noodle on it and debate on things sometimes, it definitely leads to a better outcome, and that's definitely what happened.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the things that even on some of the other projects that maybe aren't associated with this, we talk about where to enter, let's say, the primary bedroom, whether it's a serviceable area or a dining room, and we're going through, and I think that collaboration that we're able to have and that we continue to build on after each build allows us to be able to get to the best common denominator when it comes to functionality of spaces. And I know Paul has some thoughts on this because he's the one that's obviously selling our specs. What do you hear from some of the clients that walk through our homes? I mean, you have an opportunity to be able to engage with, those that are either coming through our launch events and or our open houses, all the way to the point where we find and secure someone that's actually going to live in this home for, the next decade or so.
Man, if I could tell you all the things I've heard about all the floor plans and all the houses that we've all walked, the modern floor plan is...
Why they do this or why they do that.
Yeah, and it's... I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but, the houses from the 80s and the 90s, they were sectional. They had a dining room, they had a living room, they had a family room. And then we went through a decade or a period where just everything was like a freaking barn, where it was just well, where's the couch? Where's the dining room go? And they were all just in a space. And now we're seeing a lot of it go back to more rooms, and not necessarily more bedrooms or more bathrooms, but more livable spaces where people can not be by themselves, but do things differently. Like downstairs here, we have a great entertaining space with a dedicated dining room. And then upstairs, you have a secondary living space and a patio. So there's like lots of spaces for things to be done, whether that be workout room, game room, entertainment room, couch, kids room. You know, there's lots of spaces for the modern homeowner to enjoy.
Yeah. I think one of the things, or the terms that I've used too, is defined spaces. You know, not just a big, you know, open barn or open concept that used to exist. And I think that goes a lot with the programming that Tyler and his team are putting together. I mean, it's actually pretty difficult to try to get all the space functioning appropriately, sized appropriately, and allowing for the proper flow of how someone's actually going to be able to utilize the space. And I think that is, you know, coupled with great architecture. You know, a lot of the feedback and stuff that we get from all of the homes that we walk, which a majority of aren't our builds. And then I think Emily comes into the picture with, you know, helping to make sure that the interior and the cabinetry is also flowing in a way that makes the most sense for modern day living.
I agree. It's definitely a team effort. I mean, you and I have sat many early mornings and late nights moving doors, getting rid of one door because there's too many doors in an entryway, or moving a kitchen over 6 inches just to make sure that the rest of the house flows really well.
Absolutely. I mean, me and Tyler have been working on some of those nuances as we have the next, you know, 4 or 5 projects going on. So, you know, as we kind of round out, I'd love to hear some of the favorite design aspects as it relates to the architecture, the interior design, and then obviously from the end user perspective. So if you wouldn't mind, you know, sharing some of your favorite designs architecturally, Tyler, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about this home is I really do like the extruded volume up on the second level. I like that it's contemporary. It's not something that you see everywhere. And then I think one of the other things I really, really like about this house is the entry. I think it's large, it has double height, it has great natural light. And then I really like the fact that there's some of that detailing from the exterior that's brought into the interior, and you recognize that when you walk into the home.
So we hit it off point with the form and functionality of the exterior.
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all around. It's 360. I think the house looks good from the front and from the back.
Absolutely. What about you, Emily? Some of like your favorite interior features that you were able to bring and integrate?
I love all the natural stone. I love the custom pieces that we had local craftsmen make. I really love asymmetry, and a lot of people are nervous to do it. So I love that we were able to do it several times here.
Paul?
My favorite aspects of the home, I am not an entertainer, so I'm not a big house entertaining kind of guy. But when I am in this house, I just visualize entertaining people. Like the upstairs deck is just, that is just phenomenal. The fact that it wraps, I mean, it's not wraparound. I don't know what the definition of wraparound deck is, but I mean, it literally goes from the back of the yard to the front of the yard, offering multiple sitting areas. You can entertain and have people in the back. We all know Arcadia Light is huge with neighbors. So the ability to just banter with neighbors is great. This house is awesome. And when you bring people in and they start calling out stuff that I know Emily did or Emily picked, or are like, oh, is this Tyler's work? Is this Emily's work? It exudes, you can see that it just brings light to their face, and it makes me feel awesome about who I get to work with.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we haven't spent a lot of time talking about that exterior space, but I think that's one of the things that is uniquely brings what we've phrased a local luxury market, to Arcadia, where you're able to have, the focus on outdoor living and mingling with your neighbors and, being able to be friendly. I think that's something that is truly unique to the areas in which we develop. And it's one of my favorite features. And although this is a small lot, I think that the upstairs entertaining area provides that in a very unique way that helps to extend that living space as well to a space that otherwise wouldn't have been used. So definitely one of my favorite features as well. So, I know I put you all on the spot. One of my, favorite features for this home as the builder really has to do with a collaboration with the great design professionals that we have. I mean, our team knows how to build homes, and we have a strong eye for design, but it's not something we focus on day in and day out. And so that's got to be one of the most favorite aspects that I have, is being able to work with true professionals that help to make our project elevated, similar to the term that we use for this, which is ALTA. From an interior design perspective, the primary suite being located downstairs as the only room creates true privacy with no one actually upstairs above them, and really kind of gives that hotel like ambiance to this house, which will allow the homeowners that purchase this home to live their best life, and have the privacy that we all desire, especially for all of us here that have kids. So that's the thing that predominantly stands out to me, not only because it's functional, but once again, that ambiance of being able to have more of a spa-like feel, a place to be able to retreat from, the stressors of life. I talk a lot about that, and it just came together so well that really will allow for the homeowner to be able to enjoy their own space.